For about 20 years, I used to wear glasses. And then a few years ago, I decided to get one of those corrective laser things where they like open up your eye and make a flap and they laser it and put it back together and all those kind of things. So you actually have to be awake for this procedure because you have to look at a certain point and everything for the laser. But they give you a little sedative to help you to relax. And so before this procedure, I got this little prescription, and it was for a couple Valium. And that was actually the end of a kind of a rough year for me in my life. And so I sort of laughed and thought, well, I figured this year would end with me taking a Valium. Not that there's anything wrong with that for those who need that, of course, but I just felt it was ironic. In any case, so I heard that this procedure, it didn't really hurt, but you kind of felt it. So I was like totally confident going into this thing. So like I walked in there like a boss, just ready to get this done. And so what I didn't know about though was this suction cup thing that they put on your eye to keep it open. So I'm there on the table, and all of a sudden the doctor puts this big thing right in my eye. It probably wasn't the actual motion, but that's what it felt like. Ah! And I was like, ah! I like wasn't expecting this at all. And I was like starting to sweat. I was like getting all fainty. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going into shock? Like, this is ridiculous. And I was done. Like, before it even started, like I was done with that whole thing. But of course, I still had to do this little procedure. And so I kept having to look at this little laser dot that was up there. And I didn't realize at first that with the eye that was covered, you still had to like look with it in order to have the thing come into focus. Because otherwise, eye just goes all over the place. And so the doctor, just great Catholic guy, he kept telling me, like, Father Jeff, you got to focus. You got to focus. I'm like, I'm trying. He's like, you got to focus. I'm like, I'm trying. And I said, that it's going all over the place. He's like, no, that's just your eye. Like, it's still, like, you have to focus. I was a mess, this whole thing. So afterwards, he's like, oh, yeah, you did so great. I'm like, no, I didn't do a great job. No lollipop at the end for me. So I was even like, I remember laying on that table, taking a breather as they removed the thing over for the other eye. And I think out loud, I was like, I should have taken that second Valium. It was rough. It was rough. Yeah, at the end, he's like, yeah, we'll have you come back tomorrow, and if there's more that needs to be done, we'll put you back in the room. Like, no, I can't handle that. So anyway, it's hard to focus when we're done, right? When things just sort of swirl around us, it can be really hard to maintain a focus. And I think that's one of the lessons in our gospel today. Certainly in our readings, we hear a lot about hospitality and serving one another, and we know those are so important and so valued for us in our community here. But I do think when we look at poor Martha, I think the lesson is not to not serve others, but to always keep a focus on Jesus. But she was unfocused. She was uncentered in her life, even trying to do a good thing like provide a meal for Jesus and his buds. But she wasn't focused on the one thing that was needed, was to remember the presence of Jesus in the midst of it all. And so in her lack of focus, she gets to saying like, Lord, do you not care? Maybe sometimes we think that too when we're not focused on the Lord. And she says, Lord, tell her to help me. You know, there's probably something off in her spirit if she's barking orders at the Lord of heaven and earth. Of course, Jesus, in his love for her, speaks kindly to her. Martha, he's not scolding her. He's encouraging her, like, you are burdened with too many things. You are anxious and worried about too many things. Because Mary has decided to keep her focus on me. So I think in the midst of our everyday lives, with the good things, with the challenges, with the anxieties, with the discouragements, with the struggles, with the disappointments, all those things that can swirl around us, the call today is to remember to keep our focus on the Lord. Of course, God is always present, but sometimes we're just not attuned or aware of his presence. So no matter it is what we're doing, whether we're doing just sort of mundane things at home, whether we're at work, whether we're at school or our activities, to remember that God sort of surrounds it all. And when we keep our focus on God, all those other things in our life just sort of seem to fit in better. And so we can even think of St. Paul in our second reading, who says something outrageous like, I rejoice in my sufferings for your sake. I think he can do that because he was focused on the Lord. And even the hard things that he went through in trying to share faith with others ended up not bothering him so much because he knew the life of Jesus within him, which he called the hope for glory. And he was able to do things he otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. So friends, as we encounter Christ here in the Mass today, as he's literally like within us, let's ask for that grace to always, in the midst of the ups and downs of life, to keep our focus on him, to know that he is there for us, that he is there to bring us life, to continue to transform us with his presence, and so that in everything that we can do, we know that the Lord is with us and in us and surrounds us. And so may we keep our focus always on him.